Hello everyone. This is Dr. K. Jagannayaki, Professor MBA Department. Now, I would like to discuss about designing a questionnaire. How to design a questionnaire. So, if you want to collect the data, we need to depend on two types of data sources. One is primary data, another one is secondary data. So, in case of primary data, one of the method is a questionnaire survey method. So, survey method we are going to use questionnaire as one of the basic tool through which we can easily collect information from the target group of customers. So a survey is nothing but collection and analysis of data from a group of people. So it should be done with the help of a questionnaire. So questionnaire is a specific tool or instrument for collecting the data. So it creates a valid and reliable questions so that we can easily address the objectives of your research and how to place all the questions in a useful order and how to select an appropriate method for administration. So all these things possible with the help of questionnaires. So it is only one component of survey research and it involves defining the population, then choosing an appropriate sample by using suitable method, and also helps to administer the questionnaires and data cleansing and analysis. And after collecting the data by using a questionnaire, and we can able to interpret the collected data by using different types of scientific methods. So it should be some differences. Sometimes we can able to find the differences between population and samples. We can also minimize the samples so that it will help to avoid several types of research bias, like sampling bias can be minimized, ascertainment bias, and under coverage bias. That should be possible with questionnaire just by selecting a sample from a large population. And what are the different types of questionnaire methods? So basically we have two types of questionnaires. One is self-administered, another one is researcher-administered. So what is the difference between self-administered questionnaires and researcher's questionnaire? So if you take the first one, self-administered questionnaire, it is more common and easy to understand and you can easy to implement also, and it is inexpensive in nature. And it can be delivered online or in paper and pen format or in person or through mail. So all questions are standardized so that all the respondents who have received the mail, they can easily identify and they can able to administer all the questions. And self-administered questions can be cost effective and easy to administer for small and large group, and anonymous and suitable for sensitive topics, and they are self-paced. They may also be unsuitable for people with limited literacy or verbal skills. So, to answer the questions in a questionnaire, the respondent need to have limited literacy and susceptible to a non-responsive bias. So, most people invited, they may not be complete the questionnaire. So, halfway they used to left over. And biased towards people who volunteer because impersonal survey requests often go ignored. And they allow deeper insights. When you are talking about researchers administered questions, the questionnaires that are developed by researcher, they used to develop the questions as per their objective. They allow deeper insights, interviews that take place by phone or one can conduct in person or online between researchers and respondents. So these questionnaires can be helpful to the researcher to to ensure the respondents are representative of the target audience. So, to whom you are going to select, they must be related to your target population, and it allows clarifications of ambiguous and unclear questions, and one can seek answers from the target group of respondents, and it have high response rate because it's harder to refuse an interview when personal attention is given to the respondents. And researcher administered questionnaires can be limiting in terms of resources. So, what kind of resources are going to consider under limiting factors? The first one is it is highly expensive and time consuming to perform. And it is also more difficult to analyze if you have qualitative responses. See, if we have quantifiable responses that can be easily measurable, but when you are exclusively talking about the attributes or qualities or characteristics of the respondents, it is somewhat difficult to analyze, and it is likely to contain experiment bias and demand characteristics. So you cannot demand the respondent. So it depends. Sometimes they may disclose certain things, sometimes they may not. So likely to encourage social desirability bias in response because of a lack of anonymity. Then coming to open-ended versus closed-ended questions. So in questionnaire we can find two types of questions. Some questions will be open-ended and some questions will be closed-ended type. So closed-ended questions limits the responses. They used to have only dichotomous answers, either yes or no. There ends your response. Further, if you want to describe or elaborate, that may not be possible with the help of closed-ended questions. But whereas coming to open-ended questions, they enable a broad range of answers. So it creates some kind of need to balance these considerations with available time and resources. Then coming to closed-ended questions, see, as I told you, they are restricted choice. The questions offer respondents a fixed set of choices to select from. So these questions are best for collecting data on categorical or quantitative variables. So categorical variables can be nominal or ordinal in nature, and quantitative variables can be interval or ratios. So understanding the type of variable and level of measurement, it is essential to the researcher so that he can perform appropriate statistical analysis to generalize the results. And examples of closed-ended questions for different variables. First, if you take nominal variables, it includes categories that can't be ranked. So whenever you are categorizing the variables into different categories, it may not be possible to prioritize and rank those categories. If you consider race and ethnicity, or it includes binary or dichotomous categories, means there will be two categories which includes the overall possible answers and they are mutually exclusive. So it should be no overlap between response items, and in dichotomous questions only two options given to the respondent to choose from. For example, if you consider race, what is your race? So we used to give different types of options: white, black, or African, American, American Indian. So like that we used to give different options. From that, the respondent has to choose only one option. And second, if you asking about your satisfaction levels, like are you satisfied with the current work from home policies? There is no further scope, yes or no. So people have to choose only one. So that type of options are known as dichotomous or binary options. Coming to ordinal variables. So ordinal variables, they include categories that can be ranked. For example, if you are going to consider how wide or narrow a range, then we'll include certain responses. For example, if you're talking about age, what is your age? So we used to categorize age 15 and above, 16 to 35, 36 to 60, like that we can categorize. So Likert scale questions collect ordinal data using rating scales with 5 or 7 points. For example, if you take how satisfied or dissatisfied are you with your online shopping experience today? So we used to give a scale which possesses either 5 points or 7-point rating scales. Very dissatisfied, somewhat satisfied, neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, somewhat satisfied, somewhat or very satisfied. So like how we used to categorize, basing on that, they have to select one option. And intelligent test, most probably psychological related scales or personality inventories, they use Likert scales to collect interval data. So with interval or ratio scales, apply strong statistical hypothesis tests to address research aims. So what are the pros and cons of closed-ended questions? So a well-designed closed-ended questions, they are easy to understand and answered very quickly. An incomplete set of responses may force some respondents to pick closest alternative to their true answer. So these types of questions may also miss out the valuable detail. So what exactly the researcher want to collect from you, they may miss. To solve these kind of problems, the researcher make questions partially closed-ended, which also include some open-ended option where respondents can fill in their own answer. Then coming to open-ended questions or long-form questions, it allows respondents to give answers in their own words. You are giving some certain option to the respondent. Whatever he want to deliver, that should be possible with the help of open-ended questions. There are no restrictions on their choices. They can answer how they want to present themselves to the question. For example, respondents may want to answer multiracial for the question on race rather than selecting from a restricted list. So, how do you feel about open science? So, when I am asking about your opinion, you can able to specify your feel about open sciences. And how would you describe your personality? You're giving some kind of option to the respondent so that he can able to describe about his own personality. So in your opinion, what is the biggest obstacle for productivity to remove remote work? So for everywhere we are giving some option, some choice to the respondent. So open-ended questions have few downsides also. It has certain limitations. It requires more time and effort from the respondent, which may deter them from completing the questionnaire. That is one of the major drawbacks. And for researchers, understanding and summarizing responses can take a lot of time and it involves too many resources. So need to develop a systematic coding scheme to categorize the answers and involve other researchers in data analysis for high reliability. So that may be easy with closed-ended questions. Then coming to the question wording. So question wording can influence the respondent's answer, especially if the language is unclear, ambiguous, or biased. So a good question need to be understood by all the respondents. It means that it should be reliable and valid in nature. So whatever you want to measure, that can be possible with the question wording. So use clear language, use balanced framing. There should be some clarity, readability, and avoid jargon or overly complex language. Don't use double negatives because they can be harder to understand. So, as far as possible, use simple language. It should be easily understandable by the readers. And use balanced framing means respondents often answer in different ways depending on the question framing. So, some people they may give positive response, some people may give negative response, some people they keep themselves mum, they will give neutral answers. Neither they are going to support nor they are going to ignore the things, right? So, example, if you consider positive versus negative frames, coming to positive frame, should protest of pandemic related to restrictions be allowed? And coming to negative frame, how you are going to ask, should protest of pandemic related restrictions be forbidden? So use a mix of both positive and negative frames to avoid research bias and ensure the question wording is balanced wherever possible. So unbalanced question focus only on one side of an argument. So respondents may be less likely to oppose the question if it is framed in a particular direction. So it is best practice to provide a counter argument within the question as well. For example, if you take unbalanced versus balanced frames, if you're talking about do you favor, so you are talking only in one aspect, that is whether you are favorable to it or not. Favorable, that's it. But coming to balanced, do you favor or oppose? So you are giving two options. One is positive, another is negative. Even in case of another example, do you agree that, that is unbalanced frame. When you are talking about a balanced, do you agree or disagree that? So it depends on individual person's opinion. Some people may agree, some people may not agree. And next one is avoid leading questions. So answering in specific ways, even if that's not how they truly feel, by explicitly or implicitly providing them with extra information. So it is best to keep the questions short and specific to the topic of interest. For example, if you take one example, do you agree or disagree that multivitamins are helpful for balanced nutrition? So we used to say only one specific answer out of two choices. Some people may give agree, some people disagree. And keep your questions focused. So what exactly you want to extract from the people, up to that extent, you formulate the question. It should be specific in nature and ask about only one idea at a time. You should not go for multiple ideas and avoid double barreled questions. Double barreled questions ask about more than one item at a time, which can confuse respondents. For example, if you take, do you agree or disagree that the government should be responsible for providing clean drinking water and high speed internet to everyone? So it leads to some sort of confusion. One way you are asking about clean drinking water, other way we are talking about high speed internet. So then you are asking, given certain 5-point Likert scale, you are given 5 options. So that leads to some kind of confusion among the respondents. So that type of questions are known as double barreled question. And question order That is also very important in social science research. Whenever you are going to construct any questionnaire, it should be organized the questions logically with a clear progression from simple to complex. So at a time, you should not directly go to the point. Like initially, we have to ask the simple questions. Thereafter, you can pose complex questions. So randomize the question order between respondents. There should be a logical flow. So logic means starting with simple questions. So you can ask about their behavior or opinion questions, and you can end with the more complex, sensitive or controversial questions so that people they are ready to respond to your questions. So question order effects or context effects, and they occur when earlier questions influence the responses to later questions. So initially you are going to ask the simple questions. They will create some kind of interest and they are ready to give responses even if the question is complex at later stage. So reducing the validity of the questionnaire, demographic questions are usually unaffected by order effects questions about opinions and attitudes, and they are more susceptible. And order effects means presidential approval. For example, if you take ratings are often influenced by related to previous questions or references to political situations. So that kind of effects we can see especially related to politics. So these ratings are lower if they follow relevant questions. How knowledgeable are you about? For example, you're talking about Joe Biden's executive orders in his first 100 days. Then you are asking immediately another question. Whether are you satisfied or dissatisfied the way he is managing the economy? The next one more question. Do you approve or disapprove of the way Joe Biden is handling his job as president? So for this reason, presidential approval ratings questions are asked at the start of surveys to measure opinions more accurately. Then next comes to the randomization. So presenting individual respondents with the same questionnaire but with different question orders, that is known as randomization. When we use randomization, order effects will be minimized in the data set. So a randomized order may also make it harder for respondents to process the questionnaire, and some questions may need more cognitive effort while others they are easier to answer. So a random order could require more time and mental capability for respondents to switch between the questions. It takes some time to switch over from one question to another question. And step by step guide to design. There are while designing a questionnaire, we should consider the following steps. The first one is define your goals and objectives. So operationalizing concepts means turning them from abstract ideas to concrete measurements. So every question needs to address a defined need and have a clear purpose. Then step 2 is that use questions that are suitable for your sample. To whom you are conducting the survey. So just keeping your target sample in your mind, basing on their ambiguity, you can able to create the appropriate questions by taking the perspective of the respondents, and the language whatever you are going to use in the questionnaire it should be simple and easily understandable by the respondents, and give some available time and energy when designing the questionnaire. And you should not construct the questionnaire in a hurry, and also consider all possible options for respondents to closed-ended questionnaires. So, if you're talking in terms of respondents' perspective, a lack of response options that reflects a true answer may make them feel alter- alternated or excluded. Sometimes they may exclude certain things, sometimes they will seek for alternatives. And third step is that decide on your questionnaire length and question order. So make sure that the length and order of the questions are more appropriate for the sample. If respondents are not being incentivized or compensated, keeping the questions short and easy to answer. So as I told you, we need to start the questions in such a way that we should start with simple to complex questions. So the sample may be biased with only highly motivated respondents completing the questionnaire. Others they may not complete it. So decide on the question order based on researcher aims and resources. Use a logical flow. We should not miss the logic and we need to provide only limited time, or if researcher cannot randomize the questions. And randomizing questions helps to avoid bias, and it can take more complex statistical analysis to interpret the collected data. And fourth step is that pre-test your questionnaire. Pre-testing means before going to circulate or provide to the respondents, it is necessary to catch is there any kind of errors or points of confusion before going to perform the study. So for that thing, what we have to do, we need to get some kind of suggestions or clarity from the friends, classmates, or other members of target audience to complete the questionnaire. Whether they are facing any kind of difficulty in understanding and answering those questions. So find out if any questions were particularly difficult to answer, then this type of pilot study will help to test the validity and reliability of the questionnaire. So, a pilot study is a practice run of the full study and it includes sampling, data collection, and analysis. Thank you.
Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.